Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Inner Conquest, the world's greatest modern metaphysics channel. I'm your host, Jacob Edens, and today we will be discussing the video topic, Manifestation is Materialization. So when we look at materializing things, what does that really mean, right? So if you have materialization, what you're doing is you're turning nothing into something, right? Unseen into seen. So when you have manifestation, the premise is you think through dimensional spacing, fifth dimension, your I amness, you know that you're you, your unique individuality, soul spark, unique energetic signature, resonance, meditate all your thoughts away. I'm still me, right? Just pure awareness. Fourth dimension, mental space, thoughts and emotional realm, right? Blueprint constructs in your mind. I can think of a red bicycle. Now I can make it purple, right? More subtle energetic dimension that is easily malleable and customizable based off of your own will. Third dimension, more physicalized, a little bit denser, takes a little while to move and is solid, right? I can overlay in my fourth dimension this gray headphones case, and I can see it as green in my mind, but right now it's still gray, right? So why is it still gray if I change it to green in my mind? Well, because there's a time delay in what we call manifestation, right? Which is creating something internally and then having it reflect externally. There's a time delay in this keyed down realm in which we live. So understanding that is very important, because understanding that once you make that change in a fourth dimensional realm, that imaginative act, you're setting in motion causal chain of events that will have effects and ramifications in the physical world around you, okay? So when you say manifestation is materialization, what you're saying is that you're actually using subtle energies to crystallize and turn them into more gross forms, right? So if I have what is called a state, I inhabit a state of chronic depression. Ooh, so sad. A state of chronic depression all the time, right? What happens? Okay, so I have an energy field of essentially unwanted, okay? All the energy field, all the awareness in that fifth dimension is married and attached to thoughts and emotions that are unwanted. Essentially, all the things that I don't want are in my face like this, awareness, blanket covering, right? So what happens is that gets pushed outwards, right? Because that internal alchemy has married those emotional states with your identification, and you've identified with those thoughts and emotions, and that has formed and crystallized an identity in which that fifth and that fourth dimension are tethered together, okay? So when you want to materialize something new, what you have to do is bind that fifth dimensional I amness, your identity, your beingness, with new states, okay? Not depressed would be happy, right? So you got happy state, you got depressed state right here, you got identity. Identity's bound and locked into thought and emotional patterns of not wanted, right? It's going to be like this forever. We're done. Actually, I'm this. Boom. And then you bind to the new state, okay? What happens is you start to bind to the new state. This old state is still stuck to you, okay? And the way that it sticks to you is through emotional entanglement and or awareness. Okay, so when you place your awareness on something, what you focus on, you create, and what you think, you become. So by having control over this fifth dimension, this identity factor, you can do what is called binding and loosing of states. Okay, so when you have a state like depression, you have a state like happiness right here, different octaves on the emotional scale, right? Your identity never changes. You're always you. You always know that you're you, okay? So when you blanket yourself in a state, it's very similar to wearing clothes, right? It's like wearing a new pair of shoes, you break it in, and then that's the shoes that you want to wear because they're already broken in. So when you get a new pair of shoes and they're not broken in, they're better shoes, but they're not broken in, so they're not as comfortable as the old shoes that have already been formatted to your feet. That's how states work, right? So even though the depression is the bad state that you don't want to be in anymore, or the poverty state, or the unhealth state, or it's just unwanted in general, right? You want to go to that new wanted state. Your impressions have been made in that old state so that you kind of slip into a groove with it. It's easy because of your repeated focus. You don't have to retrain your brain and your mind to consistently focus on it. So when you bind and loose from states, and you want to materialize a new state, what you're doing is you're becoming indifferent to that old state. And that's very important to understand, because you can't battle your way out of an old state. You can definitely reaffirm and rebind to a new state, but even in that process, what you're doing is you're siphoning your awareness from that old state. You're drawing your attention out of it, right? You're pulling the power source, you're pulling the plug on it through your indifference and your inattention to it. And then you're placing that attention on what is wanted and allowing that to bind to you by energetically entangling and engaging yourself with it. When you look at Neville Goddard and he talks about, feeling into the wish fulfilled, why are you feeling into the wish fulfilled, right? You're binding yourself to a fourth dimensional state, which will have ramifications and effects in alignment with the nature of that state. If I feel into a wanted state, what happens is I start to feel into that state, but I'm still attached to that old state. So there are attributes of my five senses that will, quote unquote, deny the feasibility of that new state to be entered and occupied. Okay, this is very important to navigate, because when I go into a new state that I want to bind to, my senses will mess with me. They'll say, this is impossible, or you always felt like this, or it's over for you, right? That is all old states trying to flare up to, once again, get your attention to focus on it, okay? So the way that you get out of that through binding and loosing is you become indifferent to those old states, and then you feel into the new states. But more importantly than that, you maintain that identity and that fifth dimensional awareness of I am what I claim to be, and nothing can change that unless I allow it to be so, right? Because when you have that power position, now you become the conductor of the different states in which you occupy. They're not as personalized and intrinsic to you as you may believe, right? I'm Jacob, but I can be happy Jacob, I can be sad Jacob, I can be poor Jacob, I can be rich Jacob, right? I'm always going to be Jacob, but I have the ability to coat myself in these different atmospheres of consciousness, right? And you call them atmospheres of consciousness because you have an electromagnetic field, right? So when you look at the different videos and they're like, hey, this person's magnetic AF, right? What does that mean? Well, it means that things are drawn to them. Why are things drawn to them? Well, because they're emitting a certain vibrational frequency, which is in alignment with other things of the same vibrational escrow. So you have law of attraction, you have law of vibration, right? So everything you're thinking, you're putting into your field. Everything that you're feeling, you're putting into your field, and it's basically magnetizing and syncing you up via law of attraction with different things that are in alignment with those elements of reality that synchronize with that vibration. So when you want to come into a place of empowerment, what you want to understand, number one, is that you want to be the conductor of what you're outputting, not as much as the controller of the things that are being attracted, right? If you have a video game controller and you're playing the video game and your guy keeps getting smoked, right? You don't try to run outside and find the guy who smoked you in the video game, go to his house and beat him up so you don't get smoked anymore. You just make the controls better. You get better at playing the game so that now you can control everything outside of you by actually having your hands on the controller, right? Same thing works for internal engineering. When you understand that your internal structure, your electromagnetic field is drawing to you life itself and life is emanating from you, a lot of it is about just releasing these old structures and energizing these new constructs on that fifth dimensional and fourth dimensional realm so that they marry each other and reflect outwards. What that does is that gives you essentially power over the root of all causation in your life, right? Because if you have a second cause, then you make a God out of that thing, right? I have to do this to get that. As soon as you do that, you have assigned a power value to that thing outside of you that you must now conditionally adhere to lest you not get the result, okay? But it's actually inaccurate thinking, because if you have a external power value, the reason that external power value is there is because you assigned and value tagged that power value. So what you want to do is you want to decrease the importance level, siphon the power value from whatever thing you've created, and then you want to jump to what is called living in the end, which is thinking fourth dimensionally, okay? So when you think fourth dimensionally, you have to understand that anything that you want in life, right, you're going through a process, and then at the end of that process, you're going to be like, yes, I got the thing, right? Well, the yes, I got the thing frequency exists right now, right? And your unwillingness to inhabit that state shows that you're not ready to actually be that thing yet, which is good, because once you kind of work out that mental diagnostic, you understand that all frequencies and all emotional states and all thoughts are accessible to you now, and all you got to do is bind with the states that you want and loose from the unwanted states, okay? So once you understand that, life becomes a lot more easy because you just simply hold in affixation what is called living in the end, living from the wish fulfilled, right? So if I want an experience, say I want my experience to be, I have great posture, okay? And I've never had good posture. When I say, I am so happy and grateful now, right? The syntax of that structure is structured in such that it is a command to reality. It's not a fly-by-night prayer. It's not a wishful thinking thing. It is a direct command to reality. Now, I am so happy and grateful. Why am I happy and grateful? Well, I'm happy because happiness implies I got what I want. I'm grateful because you can only give gratitude for things that you have. The implication is that I have this thing, okay? So happy and grateful now that I am someone with perfect posture, okay? Great posture. So when you have great posture, but then you look outside in your third dimensional reality and you're still snarl mixnaggletooth, you want to understand that that command has been sent out, but there's a time delay reverberation in this third dimensional reality that you're essentially bridging that gap with, right? So the whole reason that faith is so important is because faith is loyalty to an unseen reality. So that's that fifth and that fourth dimension, okay? So I've married that fifth and that fourth dimension. I've made a concrete decision of who I am. That's the most important thing. I am a person with perfect posture, okay? Now what's going to unfold? I maintain my center as that identity. I go and I look in the mirror, fucked up posture. Okay, that's not me. Mentally revise because I am a person with perfect posture. Go back into the memory, edit the memory as if I had perfect posture. Why do I do that? I do that because of the electromagnetic field that emanates from my body that is attracting people, places, and circumstances. Me looking into the mirror and seeing bad posture is a circumstance of what you would call an old script, which is an old energetic framework, which is an old fourth and fifth dimensional married construct that was married unconsciously due to me seeing something that I perceived and value tagged as bad posture, and then unconsciously identifying as a person who may or may not have the best posture. And then I had a fear around that, and I kept looking at it kind of like, I hope this isn't true. And then boom, it reflected. And then once I reflected it, I accepted that I'm a person with bad posture. And now my whole reality has to reflect the identity that I'm being. Okay. So when I break that cycle and I say I'm a person with good posture, the momentum has been on the bad posture side of things, right? So what you do is you remain in that identity. You don't allow the world and the old script to influence your decision of who you've decided to be in that old identity. And the reason that you do that is because the way that you created the old reality was through the same process. You just unconsciously did it. You identified with it, you felt into the emotion, you binded to the state, and you said, this is me, it sucks, but this is me, man, right? So you want to do that consciously for the things that you want, and you want to let things that are unwanted states die naturally. When you hold a fourth dimensional construct, you're essentially layering a blueprint, right? So if I take this and I see it as green, right? What'll happen is small things will start to move in my reality. I may see another set of headphones that's green. I may see green in general. I may see headphones with a thing on Instagram saying, hey, these will be released in green, but it's not this exact thing being green, right? When you hold something, the second discipline of mind is Andrew, which means that it is the ability to stay in the wish fulfilled until the end, right? And what do? We think from the end, meaning that if we precisely target a sector of reality that we want to experience, right? So I say this is green, but it's gray, right? My job is not to go and paint this green. My job is to go into that fourth dimensional mental scape, and when I put this down, see it as green in my mind, right? I affix that new fourth dimensional reality as if it's green now, okay? And I hold that affixation regardless of what happens, because I understand that if I get what you would call half-baked manifestational evidence, it's simply just the latent unfolding of what I have perceived to be true in the past, right? So you're essentially riding out that quote unquote time delay while simultaneously holding the internal state of it being done now. What helps with this process is the understanding that whenever something changes externally, right, you have the ability to label and or judge that thing as good or bad at any point in time just based off of who you are, because you have an awareness and you're a unique soul that has the ability to create reality. So the way that you focus your awareness is different from everybody else's. And what's important to understand about this is that there's many different what you could call lifelines or timelines that can change on a moment-to-moment basis depending on how events are observed and or judged, right? So a good example is like, two kids grow up in an alcoholic home. One kid's like, how could you be so successful with an alcoholic father? He's like, how could I not? My father was an alcoholic. I had to be nothing like him, right? And then the other kid's like super not good, and he's like, well, how could you be such a failure? He's like, well, what could you expect? My father was an alcoholic. How could I be successful with that, right? Your decision-making point and the value tag and the label that you assign is of critical importance because that dictates the pivot point in which the lifeline will unfold. So understanding that when you have an occurrence, your power is to see that thing and shape it through judgment in a favorable lifeline that is in alignment with whatever your chosen identity is, right? So if you have the identity of now good posture and you go in the mirror and your posture is all messed up, you look like Hunchback of Notre Dame, you look like, a chameleon on the log, and you look like a T-Rex, you got tiny arms, right? You're totally done for, you're cooked. That's okay. You see that and you go, oh, good, this is the perfect unfolding. This is the old script playing out. I don't have to ever experience this again because I know that I am this, right? That's how easy it is. But it's discipline. It's the ability to do that on small stuff all day, every day. And the ability to pick the identity that you want to be and not allow external things to change that, right? No matter how bad it gets outside, it's all just a reflection of that internal state, right? So you want to master that internal state. That's why it's called internal conquest, because in order to conquer everything outside of you, you got to conquer that internal state. And the more that you conquer that internal state, the more control you have over not only what you would call a point of attraction, which is that frequency that you emit that basically syncs you up with people, places, and events, but also the states in which you inhabit 24/7. Because when you control the states that you inhabit, as I mentioned earlier, right? I'm going to do all these things and I get to hear it. Yes, I won. Yes. Okay, well, do you want to be a guy who does this, and this, or a girl who does this, and this, and then wins for one day and then you go back to doing this, and this? No, you want to be in that state. The reason you're doing this, and this is so you can get this and feel like this. But the key is to take that feeling, extrapolate that frequency, extrapolate that emotional state, extrapolate the thought process that individual would have right now. Understand that you can have your milk and cookies too. You can have cake and eat it too. And make that a built-in piece of your electromagnetic field that is in alignment with you winning. And then wherever you go, the world has to reflect that energetic state back to you. So now you're winning all the time in the way that you originally intended to win all the time before you accepted these secondary causes and conditions as being things and conditions that you had to complete in order to get what you want. But you could always have what you want right now because you are who you are. Okay? So understanding that binding and loosing is of utmost critical importance, and the ability to let go of those old states, hold constructs much in the same way that you would blueprint out a reality, right? This is gray in my third dimensional reality, but in my mind, I can see it as green, right? Can I hold that green AirPods case until my reality catches up? That is the constant adherence to faith, right? I have loyalty to that unseen reality. And once you have absolute loyalty to that unseen reality, you have purchased what is called the pearl of great price, meaning that you now have access to the root of all causation. You have access to the wellspring of creation, and you have the ability to make your mind into whatever you want it to be and hold it in a fixed position and watch the world coordinate itself around that fixed position. That's what becoming the Lord in Scripture is. I am that which I say I am. What does the king say? The king says, do not make me repeat myself. This is what it is. That's how you got to be. Okay, this case is green. I don't care that it's physicalized right now as gray. It doesn't matter to me. I don't care that there's not a green version of this on Amazon that I can go buy. I don't care that there's all of these different things. I have a green pair of AirPods. That's just how it is. And I mentally affix that, and I see that as a real reality. And I can only do that properly if I first understand dimensional spacing, that who I identify as and what I am aware of is reflected back to me constant, right? And that's why you have things like news and different reels and things like that trying to pump fear into your system, right? A lot of what you want is just to release fear. You just want to get rid of fear, because fear is the opposite of love. In love, all things are possible. In fear, all things are limited, right? So if you want something, it's usually a release of constraint or limitation, right? I'm an old person. I want to be young again. Okay, why are you not thinking about reducing your biological age? Well, because most people die or get sick at this age. Doesn't fucking matter. Stop. You're believing a construct that has been put into your brain, right? So it goes down the rabbit hole, but at the same time, you have to understand, once you have access to your consciousness dictates the universe. The universe does not dictate your consciousness. So you have to start putting yourself in a proper power position, because you're creating false gods all around you if you don't put yourself in that power position. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video today. Like, comment, subscribe. Additionally, the link tree has lots of cool stuff. The Spartan 1 Human Optimization Program is up. Watch the free training, and then if you want to sign up, the link is below that. Additionally, got coaching, emails, all of that good stuff. The most important thing that I have to say today is go conquer, and I'll see you in the next one.